And you're listening to Greek Speak on WSYC 88.7 FM from Shippensburg University in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. The weather outside is 27 degrees and cloudy, with tonight's low being 19 degrees, and tomorrow's high will be 38 degrees. So this week, as always, it's me, Andrew Mercier, and Luke Hillegass in the studio. And we also have Owen Henning with us today. So it's a pleasure to have Owen with us. He is a freshman student and a mechanical engineering major. He joined the Kappa Sigma fraternity in the fall 2025 semester, so he is a newly initiated brother as of very recently, so about less than a month ago, I believe. So Owen's future goals for being involved in Kappa Sigma is to be on the executive committee next year, and he is also a mechanic in the Air National Guard. So, Owen, thank you very much for joining us in the studio, and welcome to Greek Speak.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you. So, just starting off, we always ask this to every single one of our guests. I'm going to flip the order a little bit, so just to kind of go in order. How did you come about joining Shippensburg University, and then how did you end up in Kappa Sigma?
So I've always had a lot of friends who came to Shippensburg. As soon as we graduated high school, a couple of my friends, including a couple of Kappa brothers, came straight to Shippensburg. I took a little bit of a detour. I joined the Air National Guard. That took me about a year and a half, so I started here in the spring semester of 2025, and I really got a lot closer with a lot of the Kappa brothers and ended up joining this semester.
So where are you originally from then? So you must be close by.
Yeah, I'm from Hummelstown, which is right in the Hershey area.
Yeah.
So I was raised all around Hershey Park and stuff like that.
Okay. So how did you end up joining in the spring 2025 semester? You said your path wasn't so usual, so can you elaborate a little on that?
Yeah, so after high school, I took some time, and then I joined the Air National Guard over that summer. They took a while to ship me out to basic. It took until January of 24, and I would have graduated in 23, just to be clear. And in the time frame between that, I was just kind of working whatever jobs I could get. I was doing temp work at FedEx for a while. It was actually a lot of fun. But then I went to basic. I graduated basic March 22nd of 2024, and I went straight to Shepherd Air Force Base, which is in northern Texas. Stayed there until July, and Little Rock for a month. Came home in August of 2024. A little late to start university, so I worked on the military base for, I want to say, about 6 months, maybe a little shorter than that, until I came here spring semester.
Wow. So how did that inspiration come about once you graduated high school to join the National Guard?
I've always wanted to serve. I'm big into the military. I'm a big fan. I'm a bit of a patriot. I'm sure you've met a couple people like that before, but it's just always been something I wanted to do, and it helps pay for college, and that can't hurt.
Yeah, so, Owen, obviously, you're a newer member to the fraternity, and this is new for you. But as you're looking into Greek life, and more specifically Kappa Sigma, what were some things that you envisioned getting out of it?
A big thing for me was brotherhood. I really liked, when I came around last semester, I saw a lot of people just talking, enjoying themselves, having a lot of fun, and I wanted to experience that. I had a couple friends before I came here, but I wanted to kind of broaden my horizons a little bit, and I wanted to meet new people.
Yeah, man. What do you think that, as a follow-up to that, what do you think that you have gotten out of it so far? It can be one thing, it can be a multitude of things that you think you've gotten out of it so far, but just touch on that a little bit.
I would say I definitely did get that brotherhood I was looking for. I've met a lot of new friends and just great people, really. And I've gotten some inspirations that drove me into wanting to do some leadership, which is really great. And then also, I would say I gained a little bit of leadership experience just helping with my new member class, like everyone else. We all worked together, and we all took lead on different aspects, different things, which I think was really nice.
So kind of flipping that question of, like, what have you gotten so far? What are some things that you expect to get within the next semester or next year? It's kind of a two-parter. That's the first part, and then the second part is, what do you believe you can bring to the fraternity as a whole?
So in the next semester or year, especially semester, I'd like to move into more roles in the fraternity. I'd like to be able to do different things. Obviously, as a new member, and in my new member initiation, I was doing a limited amount of activities. I couldn't lead as well as I wanted to. I couldn't necessarily have as much input as some people would like to. And I'd like to put some of that input in and maybe help improve some of the things that fraternity can do. And moving on through that into the next year, I'd like to get onto the executive council, and I think I could do some good things for us here. You never know. Life throws some weird things at you, but I'm hoping to be able to do it. And then the second part of your question, can you repeat that for me?
It was, what do you truly believe you can bring to the fraternity within the next semester to, just overall your time within the organization?
I think I can bring a couple things to the table. So obviously I have a different experience than a lot of people just from when I started, from being in the military. I don't know if we've had executive committee members that have been in the military before.
There's been one.
We've had one.
At least in the last several years, Alec Morales served as our Grand Scribe, otherwise known as our secretary, which Drew Williams holds currently. But Alec Morales is the one that I've seen in recent years.
Yeah, and I'm sure he brought some interesting things to the table, and just the military perspective is a much different one from what a lot of people have. So I think it can really just broaden the horizons of what we have. And then also just coming from joining college late. I know a lot of people come straight in from high school, but there's also that group of people who didn't necessarily come in at the same time, and you have to be able to support everyone. It can't all just be focused on that one group.
Well, you talked about the military experience. I'm very curious about that because that's where it all started after high school for you, and then one thing leads to the next, of course, and eventually you're at Shippensburg. But you mentioned, I think you said you went to Texas and then Little Rock, Arkansas, in 2024 for once you completed basics. So can you just walk us through what that process was like, how that developed you as a person, what you learned with the Air National Guard whenever you were in basic, and then what you did in Texas and Arkansas?
Yeah, so I learned a ton throughout that entire process, and I think I grew a lot as a person. Obviously, it's not an easy thing to do going through basic. It is extremely difficult, extremely stressful. I think it was a beneficial thing for me. I learned a lot about working together as a team. Like, when you mess up, so does everyone else. If someone else in your unit messes up, everyone's getting smoked. You're all doing push-ups. That's just how it goes. So I think I learned a lot about teamwork, and I think I can actually bring that into the fraternity a lot. I think we can implement a little bit more teamwork. I know we work well together when we all put our minds to something, but I think we could stand to put our minds to something together a little bit more, which would be really nice to see. And then obviously basic was hard, but technical training was not easy either. That was more of a mental issue than a stress or physical thing. The way that played out was I graduated from basic. That was in Lackland, which is San Antonio, Texas. And a day later, I got to see my family for a day, and a day later, I was shipped straight to northern Texas, new dorm, random roommate, just trying to figure out what's going on, and straight into classes for months, and then straight to Little Rock. And once again, it's just classes, a little bit more on the job training there, and that's just mechanic work.
What was the experience like being in Texas and Arkansas? What was some of the experiences you got to have, maybe outside the National Guard while you were there, or was there much of anything you got to do off base?
Yeah, so Texas, I think my favorite experience that I had off base in Texas, I actually went to a rodeo for the first time. It was really an exciting experience. I had a lot of fun. I never would have expected some of the events they hold there. They have, you think of bull riding, you think of stuff like that. They have women who ride around in circles around barrels. They have a clown in the center of a barrel while the bulls are chasing people. It's real fun stuff.
Yeah, rodeo is really where the show is at. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. So you talked about your tech school after basic. So that's obviously something that we've had, and I've seen a lot out of our members. Cody Patterson is a good example of that. He got to really explain his experience in some degree with that. But correct me if I'm wrong. You talked about taking classes. Are these classes able to maybe translate to university credits, or is that just classes that you take that you have to take to be in the military?
So these classes, that's actually a bit of a sore subject. They should translate to credits. However, the Air National Guard combined with Shippensburg is not a great team right now. And I should have gotten roughly 20 credits before I joined, and I ended up getting a grand total of, drumroll please, 2. So, but yes, they do, I would say, not translate well to real college experience in my case, because it's all just mechanic work. I understand how specifically one plane works. Like, I can tell you all the systems involved and all of that and all the different tools that I would need, but it didn't translate well. However, basic training, that the classes that I went through in that did, I think.
Well, that sounds like the application of the things you learn in the classrooms in Air National Guard are a lot more direct than perhaps the theories of why we have general education requirements as university students. Whereas we say, for your gen eds, you say, well, the idea is it makes you well-rounded. It makes you be able to be versatile, like apply different skill sets based on whatever you want to do. But also being in the Air National Guard, it's very clear what the mission and what the purpose of your being there is going to be. So it does make sense that those classes are very technical. It just, like you said, very unfortunate that it didn't transfer over so cleanly. What is the transition like? And I know this is something for people who, whenever they serve in the military, like and they go overseas and have those types of missions, transitioning back into civilian life. I mean, once you are no longer, at the bases in Texas, once you're no longer in Arkansas, you come back to Pennsylvania, you're ready to become a college student. What's that transition like?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, actually. I found it to be, and I didn't do anything insane. I was just technical training and working on a military base, living at home with my parents still. But even then, like transitioning from that into coming to Shippensburg, coming to school, it was an interesting experience for sure. It changed a lot. There was one point in technical training where at 2 a.m. they pulled all of the fire alarms. And we went outside. This is in March. It was freezing, even though it was in Texas.
Yeah.
We went outside for 2 hours, and they searched all our rooms for contraband. They pulled out all the drawers, dumped out all of our stuff. But I come here, and I find out that the most they can do is look at your room. They're not even allowed to open drawers, and the fire alarms only go off because people don't know how to cook popcorn.
Yeah, nothing quite like that at 2 a.m. That was a spontaneous. That's sure that was a spontaneous moment. And
I freaked out.
Yeah, I mean that's concerning. I mean. Wow, that's really interesting to hear that. But there is, I mean, that's a bit similar. The fire alarm goes off here overnight, but yeah, that's not to that extent whatsoever. That's really interesting to hear that that's what goes on there. But that shows you have to be on guard 24/7. You have to be on your A game there. So a lot more to come here on Greek Speak. This is with Owen Henning from Kappa Sigma, Luke Rainey, Andrew Mercier, and Luke Hillegass behind the microphones as always. We'll take a quick pause and we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so we're back on Greek Speak with Owen Henning. Owen, so we talk about the military side of things. So once you don't put a lid on it, obviously, but once you start coming to Shippensburg, we talked a little bit about like the adjustments, like you said, even just the simple cadences of when the fire alarm goes off and for what purposes. That's something minor. But it is an interesting detail. I want to tie it back into what you said earlier about how you knew a lot of people who were Kappa Sigmas at SHIP. Can you just touch on who all you knew and how the connection continued, once you left home, you go to the National Guard, you come back, and you go to Shippensburg. How did that connection continue to keep you around Kappa Sigma?
Yeah, so it's actually a kind of an interesting story for me. When I was in high school, I became really good friends with a girl in my gym class who was dating Owen Maurer, and me and him became friends through that, and I ended up meeting a couple of his friends as well. The ones who are in Kappa now include Jackson Carter as well as Tyler Bell, and then I came up to Shippensburg to see them when I was still working as a temp at FedEx in the fall of 23, and met a couple other guys who are now brothers, Troy as well as Tice Black, and that was, I kind of just interacted with them through time, and once I got here, I really got to know them a lot better, and it worked out well for me. I consider them pretty good friends.
Yeah, so obviously a larger group of people before you get here than usual. I had like 1 or 2 people that I had come to school with or knew that they were going to be at Shippensburg, but we kind of joined Kappa Sigma together, so it's got to be an interesting dynamic to come here knowing people already and them already being. So like explain that a little bit. With it seems like you've known them for a while, so obviously you have that friendship before you even get here, from what I'm understanding, and then they're in a fraternity. You start looking into that fraternity and you join that. So talk about that process a little bit more. I know you touched on it earlier just a bit, but talk on that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I came in last semester with the first thing I did the first day I was here was I went over to Owen Maurer's room up in Harley Hall, 430, throwback to that. But we hung out, we watched some football, and I remember it snowed on that day or the day after, one of those days and we ended up, a bunch of us, wearing a bunch of trash bags and sliding down the hills that we could find around. It was a lot of fun, and after that I started hanging out with them a lot more, and that led to me coming around the chapter house a little bit, and seeing everything that was going on. And I kept seeing on everyone's stories, like I had a bunch of brothers at it at this point on my Snapchat. I'm seeing these charitable causes, and it's for the military heroes, and I'm like, well, I'm military, I can respect that a lot. So I grew to respect that, as well as just the camaraderie I saw. So that kind of drove it all together, and it ended up being funny. Owen Maurer was the head of my new brother initiation council. It was really cool.
So I guess kind of going into that, was there like a set moment that you kind of just were like, yeah, I'm going to do it? Because obviously you were here during the spring. You interacted with the brothers of Kappa Sigma, and then you all, went to the summer. And there's been a lot of cases in the past where, people tend to kind of like slither away, kind of their interest kind of goes down because the summer's a long time. It's a long break. You go back to a completely different group of people. Yours is a little bit different because you live in the same area as these individuals. So it's kind of different. But was there like an epiphany, like a moment like that where you're like, yeah, I'm going to do it?
Yeah, so it's actually funny you mentioned like living in the same area as people, because my kind of realization was I was at a party at it was like a birthday party or something, or Labor Day party at Owen Maurer's house. We were just and it was just a bunch of people hanging out, and I realized he had some brothers there that were from nowhere nearby. Shout out to Jordan Peters and Ethan Karras. They were both there. And I realized like he's making friends not just for college that he can take home and like be around his family. Like his family was there, his sister, his parents. Like it was really just a big hangout, and we had a lot of fun. But I still like to mess with him. I mean, I can't tell him I'm gonna join. I threw you for a loop, Andrew. I told you, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna rush yet, and I put a 10 on your board of whether or not what my interest was in the fraternity.
Yeah, something that I really want to talk about is we've been talking about it a little bit, like the whole show. It was alluded to in the intro, but I think it's pretty apparent you have a desire to be within leadership of Kappa Sigma. So talk on that a little bit. I'm very curious about that. Where did that come from? Where did that spark? What positions are you interested in? And like most important, why?
Yeah, so honestly, there's a lot I still want to explore with positions-wise. I really haven't set a clear goal or decision on that front, but I do know I want to get into leadership. I kind of just want to leave my mark, leave it better than I found it, you know what I mean? And I've always enjoyed leadership roles, and I have a little bit of experience. I actually, not a lot of people know this, at least here at Shippensburg. I was an Eagle Scout, and I was... So I led my troop there. It's kind of funny to say. A lot of people look down on it, but I did have a lot of fun with that, and it was a good experience for me. It actually helped me rank up within the Air National Guard. So that drove me kind of to want leadership here, and I just saw how our leadership team now works, and it's inspiring.
Well, becoming an Eagle Scout, we actually talked with Matthew Hoover, who from PSP a few weeks ago, who was extensively involved in Scouts growing up, and we talked a lot about those interests and had a really good conversation on those topics. So, I mean, when did you start pursuing Scouts? Like, were you involved in Cub Scouts in the early elementary days, or how'd that process go?
Honestly, Rainey, I don't remember when I wasn't in Scouts. I think I started in kindergarten or first grade, and I took it all the way. I mean, really, I cut it real close, though. I finished my Eagle project the day before my 18th birthday. So I was in Scouts for a solid 12 years there.
What was your project?
I ended up making a two donation baskets, one for a food drive and one for a shepherd's closet for my local church.
Wonderful.
So they still use those today. I just got sent a picture by my Scoutmaster, I think 2 weeks ago, of people still using them, and it's really inspiring to see that, and I'm glad that people are still finding use out of it.
I mean, what would you say are the top life lessons that you've taken from, being a Scout for 12 years that, you see yourself applying every single day? Whether it's being a brother of the organization, a member of the National Guard, our Air National Guard, and ultimately being a student at Shippensburg?
So there's a couple that I would say there. Number one, obviously being leadership. They gave me a lot of experiences. I mean, I was it's called senior patrol leader, basically the head scout in the troop for a year there while I was in that. It was over COVID. That was a difficult year, but we had fun still. And I would say the secondary one, believe it or not, is first aid. I learned so much first aid, and I'm currently a lifeguard at Hershey Park. I'm a lead lifeguard, actually, a supervisor there, and I have used first aid in numerous scenarios. I've had multiple situations where we've called paramedics in, and I've used my first aid in that situation.
How long have you been a lifeguard at Hershey Park?
I was a lifeguard I lifeguarded, I want to say, 4 years.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Yeah, so I started in summer of 21. 2022, 2023, I took a gap in 2024 because I lived in Texas and the commute was too much. 2025, I came back and got promoted to supervisor.
A lot of what you've done, so you talk about scouts, you talk about Air National Guard, you've talked about being a lifeguard. I mean, a lot of those are services that are meant to help the community and many times support people who are in life-threatening and life-endangering situations. I know a lot of times when it comes to service in that regard, it is often a family thing. Was there, I apologize if you talked about this earlier in the show, but I can't recall your answer if you did. Was there a background in your family that led to this point, led to those decisions all the way back whenever you first became a lifeguard of, I really want to serve and I really want to help out in situations where people need help?
Honestly, the closest relation that I have in the military is my great-grandfather on my mom's side. But I think what drove me to do that kind of thing probably was scouts. My parents put me into scouts when I was really young, and my grandfather was a scout, and he's an Eagle Scout, and he's still to this day. Yeah. He respects it a lot, and he's always kept up with the scouting programs. But my parents drove me to do that, and they inspired me to keep going through it, even though there were times where I was, you get a lot of crap as a scout, especially in middle school. You hear, or high school, you hear oh, you're a scout, you're a nerd, whatever. But they pushed me to do it, and I'm really glad that they did. Yeah. I don't know what else drives me to do it.
I mean, yeah, that's an admirable story for sure. And I did hear before Rainey asked you that question, I heard you say that you were a supervisor, and tying that back into leadership and your desire for leadership and everything that you've done so far. Talk about the supervisor experience and what that's like. Talk about some of the duties you have to do to be a lifeguard supervisor.
I mean, being a lifeguard supervisor is honestly very stressful work, as you can imagine, especially at a place as packed as Hershey Park. I mean, there's a lot of people that show up there, and I don't know if anyone who's listening has worked in customer service, but 90% of the people that you deal with it's their first day on Earth for some reason. But regardless of that, no, that's just the ones that you remember, really. Yeah. Everyone's really nice, but supervising wise, it is stressful. You have to manage the expectations of the people you're supervising as well as the reality of what you can do. Yeah. And that's, I think, the hardest part. It's really funny, actually. One of the guys that I supervise is another brother, Ryan Carter.
Really?
Yeah, I remember that. I was going to actually bring that up.
I did not know that at all.
Yeah. So he is a older brother than me, but I am his boss.
Yeah, it's funny how things the tables turn a little bit when it comes to when people join organizations and what previous past they would have had. Because I think the ironic one was Theo Campomanes being the RA of multiple brothers,
myself included.
Yeah, and they are joining the fraternity, and or Theo joined after he was already their RA. So it's really interesting to think about how that sometimes comes back around and works out. But I mean, that's a lesson in life. I mean, you never know when someone who is quote unquote inferior, or at least beneath you in terms of any hierarchy in life, whether it's a professional one, a social one, eventually the shoe's on the other foot at times, and that it matters how you lead them, because one day the people that you're leading could eventually be leading you in some aspect.
I mean, that's something that I really had to learn how to do. And I'm sure Luke's had to do the same thing. But, being part of the executive committee for the last a year and a half, almost 2 years for Kappa Sigma has been, an opportunity for a lifetime. And, my hair turns gray every single day probably, but, no regrets. But that's definitely a struggle I've had because my new member class was 16 individuals. And, there was only, I think, 3 of us eventually got to the executive committee, and then ultimately I had a lot of friends in that class, so I had to learn how to, lead my friends, if that makes sense. And that was a struggle. And, I haven't been necessarily too open about it, but that was definitely a struggle that I had to really work on. And especially this past summer, I spent a lot of time reflecting on myself as I, really wanted to improve myself improve as a leader, I guess. Luke, do you have anything to say about that? Because I'm sure you've, had the same experience.
I do, but I think we're going to take a short break here.
We will pause here on Greek Speak. So far, it's been a great conversation with Owen Henning. As always, it's Luke, Rainey, Andrew Mercier, and Luke Hillegass leading the conversation. And thank you, Owen, again for joining us. We'll be back in just a moment on WSYC 88.7 FM from Shippensburg University in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. And we're back on Greek Speak on WSYC 88.7 FM with Luke, Rainey, Andrew Mercier, Luke Hillegass. And this week in the studio, it is Owen Henning, a newly initiated brother in the Kappa Atlanta chapter. Fall 2025, of course, was your new member semester, as we're still in it. And we're wrapping it up this semester, actually. Today is our final episode. So thank you to all who have listened throughout, and we will take it into the home stretch here in this final half hour of the episode. So, Owen, all of these experiences, we talk about, like I said, the common thread has been some sort of service in serious situations. We've talked about your leadership within the fraternity, everything else in that regard. What's your campus life beyond Kappa Sigma? What else do you have going on here? Obviously, your involvements in the Air National Guard. What do those look like as you're an active student here?
So my primary outside of Kappa Sigma life is schoolwork. I'm a mechanical engineering student, so I gotta put the time in. You know what I mean? I'm not perfect by any means, but I try my best in my classes. And then I do love sports, so I do some intramurals here and there. Intramural volleyball is I'm a real big fan of, and last semester actually it was a big introduction for me into Kappa Sigma here. I was invited to be on the Kappa Sigma intramural volleyball team by our brother Tice Black, and that kind of brought me in and introduced me to brothers, and it was my first real introduction into the chapter. And then aside from that, it's more sports, but it's not campus life. I also play on a just a fun little team for my Air National Guard unit, just for soccer.
Yeah. So you talked about, obviously, with being an engineering major and the extensive schedule that represents and provides there. You also talked about, again, a desire for leadership. So how do you currently balance schoolwork and being in the fraternity? And if you do take on a role down the road, how do you plan on balancing that even further?
So right now, I am currently balancing it like I'm on a tightrope. Basically with both arms out, and I'm trying my best. I think I'm getting better at it as time goes on. And it's obviously it's new for me. I'm still technically a freshman. I started last semester, so next semester in spring of 2026 should be my first sophomore semester. But I think I'm getting better every day with that, and over time I'll improve. Honestly, the hardest thing for me to balance is having a girlfriend in the middle of all this. I think that being a leader within the fraternity will take some time, but I can balance it along with everything else. I don't think I'll have a problem.
What's her support meant to you? How long have you guys been together, and how has she helped you along the way?
So we've been together for we're coming up on 5 months here. I met her over the summer at that lifeguarding job. It's kind of a really funny story. She actually, this is kind of a shock, lives in Spain. Yeah, so we met. She came here. She's actually calling me right now, but I'll ignore that for a second. She must have, her ears must have been burning. So she came here over the summer just for an experience, and she met me. I met her, and we ended up really liking each other. We started going out.
Yeah.
In I want to say July, right in the beginning of July, and we just decided to keep it going. I actually have a trip booked to Spain I leave next Saturday.
That's really exciting. My goodness. How long are you in Spain for?
So I actually start in Turkey. I'll be in Turkey for 3 days, and then I'll be in Spain for 8.
Wow.
So I get back here. I fly back into Pittsburgh on December 24th. I land at 7 p.m.
Just in time. Just in time for
Just
Christmas
in
Day.
time.
That's really interesting. I mean, have you ever been abroad before?
No, first time.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I had planned to go to Canada at one point, but that fell through. So luckily, I already had my passport.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never been abroad, and it should be a real interesting experience.
That's
for
something
me.
I've never done that before. Have either of you done that? Have you gone abroad?
No, well, like on cruises and stuff, I have.
Yeah.
But never like straight up just go to another country. Besides Jamaica, I have done that before.
Okay, so yeah.
This guy has some obsession with Jamaica. He was just talking about it the other day about how he loves Jamaica and wants to move there. Sorry, I just wanted to point that out.
I think it's fascinating there.
I'm sure it's a beautiful country being in the Caribbean. I'm sure that'd be really cool to be able to go there. So, I mean, any tips do you have for Owen as he prepares for his trip abroad?
Nah, man, just don't take any of it for granted. It's like it's hard to live in the moment when you're doing that kind of stuff, but it doesn't happen often, and it definitely was one of the coolest things I've got to see is going to Jamaica. So yeah, don't take it for granted. Enjoy it. Enjoy it while it lasts.
So you're going to Turkey for 3 days. So what's the plan in Turkey?
So I'm meeting up with some other lifeguard friends there. They worked over the summer as well.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I've got friends all around the country, or all around the
Worldwide
globe.
connections.
I'll tell you, well, you get an internship like that. I mean, you're going to meet people from all around the world. I mean, Hershey Park, obviously, they have an outstanding internship program. There's hundreds of people there. That makes total sense. You meet that type of group of people.
Yeah, I mean,
wow.
We had people from Colombia, people from Turkey, people from China, people from Kazakhstan, people from Spain.
Mm-hmm.
Holy
In
moly.
previous years, we've had other countries as well. I mean, it's really a great program, and I enjoyed it a lot. So I'm going to meet up with them in Turkey, spend a few days with them. I'm actually staying at one of their houses. Wow. And so that'll be an authentic experience. Okay. I've heard I'm being told I have to go to a bathhouse. I'm a little nervous about that one though.
But bathhouse.
Yeah, it's apparently
I'm scared to ask what it is, but
well, it's like a group thing, which is why I'm concerned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well, all right. So going into Spain though, so you're there for 3 days, and then 8 days after that, so you're in Spain. So Turkey's kind of the pit stop, I guess, on your trip to the other side of the Atlantic, which is really really cool. So what's the plan in Spain? Obviously, I'm sure there's a little bit of sightseeing that you might have going on.
Yeah, so my girlfriend lives in Sevilla, so we're going to be spending most of our time there. Sorry. And we are taking a trip to Madrid. We're going to tour Real Madrid Stadium on the 20th. That's going to be on game day, so we got to be careful there. It's going to be packed.
Yeah.
But we're going to take a tour of their stadium, and hopefully that is a lot of fun. But most of the time, we're going to be spending our time in Sevilla, and I'm really just looking forward to seeing my girlfriend, but I'm sure everyone else is going to want to see all the sites, so I'll make sure to go along with them,
So kind of to connect back to, the main topic, I think this was actually, it was off topic, but it was interesting, and I really enjoyed that. Turkey. Haven't heard much about turkey. I just love eating turkey on Thanksgiving, but I don't know. I mean, what would you say is the thing that you're most excited for, for the spring semester? Just overall, like what class? Let's start with what classes are you taking?
That's not something I'm particularly excited for, but I should be taking programming for engineers, calculus 2, probability and statistics for engineers, as well as physics 2 and physics 2 lab, as well as engineering seminar 2.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be excited about that. But to be positive, what are you most excited for? Like, let's come up with one goal. What is one thing that you want to accomplish within the fraternity? Obviously we've talked about your aspirations and leadership, but let's bring up one goal. Whether it's recruitment or some type of house improvement. What's one goal that you got?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to. I would love to improve the house. Like, I'd love to just help. I love to do things with my hands. It's always been something I'm passionate about. So I think that is a big thing for me. Recruitment, I'm going to save for fall of 2026. I'm actually trying to get my cousin to rush right now. He should be coming in as a junior at Shippensburg.
That's exciting.
I just saw Andrew's ears perk up over here.
Yeah, fall
Sad
20,
us
yeah.
three won't be here.
Yeah, it's so disappointing.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure you guys have had this thought. Like a lot of we're experiencing a lot of things for the last time, if that makes sense. Especially next semester, it's tough.
But I'm starting to get excited to see like how the next generation carries it on, and that's something I'm really excited for because we can make all these great strides. But I'm really excited to see who steps up and carries it on.
Yeah, for sure. And living in the moment matters big time in our senior year. And for you got a long ways to go still before you finish your degree, and be thankful for that. Because in many ways it goes by quickly, but also 4 years is 4 years, and that very quickly feels like reality for a long, long time. Whenever you're there for that long. So yeah, we're excited. We're excited for your sake. I mean, we're excited for the chapter's sake right now. Obviously, we have a big challenge when it comes to recruitment just because we're losing a lot of people. So this is a make-or-break semester, bringing in a new crowd in the spring of 2026. And, you have a role in that this semester upcoming or not. I mean, I think every brother does have a role in that, as Andrew, I'm sure, would say. But to have a serious role in that, moving forward where that's your position within would be very exciting. So, moving into the last, legs of the episode, you talk about recruiting. What are you looking for whenever you recruit people or whenever you want to see future Kappa Sigmas, taking it for someone who just recently became one?
I mean, my personal philosophy is that first and foremost, I would like to see good people. You know what I mean? I think that is really important because this is a brotherhood, and you don't want to have like a ton of disagreement. Obviously, there's going to be some. You can't avoid that. But you want to have people that you can trust, and I think that good people is the primary factor in that. I'd also like to see people who, and not everyone is, but like can socialize well. I love to talk to people. It's a lot of fun for me, and I'd like to be able to talk to them and experience their. Obviously, you guys are getting a lot of my background here. I'd like to hear about new people's backgrounds and introduce them to everyone else, Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what, being a part of college is all about, is meeting new people. When you talk about an experience where you're able to meet somebody from Spain who eventually becomes your girlfriend, your friends from Turkey, and all over the world. I mean, that's what so much of the college experience is about that. And that's why things like going to conferences, any sort of thing that even gets you beyond this campus and like somewhere else where you're with another group of people with similar interests or whatnot. The National Guard's a great example of it too. I just think one of the coolest things is whenever you meet people from all around the world. I can tell you it's been awesome, throughout the past few years, because I can't say that I was friends with people who were in international locations. I have multiple people right now who are not in the United States who I communicate with on a very regular basis, and it's awesome. And I think that's what sometimes people who don't go down the college path, they sometimes miss, is just the exposure to different areas of life. Not even saying the people are that much, have to have such different values or whatnot, because a lot of times they don't. But just meeting them and learning about their area of the world and how life operates them, and just seeing some of the things that that they believe about their place and what they believe about our place is so cool. So that's it's good that you've had these experiences so far, and the fact that you're a freshman and you've already had so much of life that you've lived is inspiring, and I say you have to continue doing that. But now we're going to transition into what is an interesting part of the show. On the other side, you're going to ask us some questions, Owen, so get ready. We're going to take a quick pause here on Greek Speak, WSYC 88.7 FM with Luke Rainey, Andrew Mercier, and Luke Hillegass, and special guest Owen Henning this week on the show. All right, back here on Greek Speak, and Owen, it is your time to shine. So what questions do you have for me, Andrew, and Luke?
I think so. I have a couple questions individually for each of you, and I'm going to start off with Luke here. Obviously,
Which one?
I want to.
Which one?
Which one?
Oh, yeah, good point. Luke Hillegass.
Okay.
Oh.
So obviously, I would like to transition into leadership within the fraternity at some point.
Yeah.
And being our current president, I think you have a little bit of experience and I know it's been a varied semester for you, but I just want to know, like, what is your primary leadership style? How would you define it? And if you could change, I know it's hard to change things about yourself, but what would you improve about your leadership style that you do right now?
Yeah, I'd say to summarize my leadership style as it like kind of basically would be servant leadership. I think that leaders who are willing to work on the front lines with the rest of, in this case, their chapter, and get work done with them, and not just, obviously you supervise the work as well, but willing to actually do the work shows the people around you and the people you're leading that you're in it for the right reasons, and you're not in it for a title or a position, but you're using the power that you have personally to make a difference. And so I would say that definitely I try to be a servant leader, and I think I have been. One thing that I would change or alter, and I wouldn't alter a whole lot, but I'd say one thing is at points I feel as though I do a little bit too much with certain duties, and if I could change that, I would allow the people that I'm leading to do more and to gain experience through that, and not stepping into their role as much as I do. And sometimes you do need to do that, but as I'm getting older, as I'm growing as a leader, I'm realizing that trust in your peers and trust in the people you're leading is super, super important, and it's imperative that you trust them while they're doing their work. So kind of taking a step back is something that I've been trying to do more, and I think so far it has been working. So I'm going to keep doing that and see if that works more.
Yeah, I mean, in my experience as a lifeguard supervisor, I do the same thing, and I think it's a really great way to lead. Like, sometimes you just gotta, like, for me, if someone needs to do something real quick, like, hey, I really need water. Okay, I'm gonna do your job real quick. I need you to be quick, but I'm gonna do your job and go get your water. Like, you have to help your people out. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
And now I'm gonna move on to Andrew here. I have a quick question for you. Obviously, you have been EC member, a leadership member for a long time, and you've seen a lot of people develop. What is the best way to develop as a brother, in your opinion?
I first want to say thank you for that question. That is a
question.
phenomenal question, and I'm going to remember that one.
That might be the best question I've ever heard. Seriously.
I actually want to have Luke answer that question as well, because I think he might have a different, maybe some insights. But I think it's the willingness to learn. Luke experiences this, in terms of leadership, but also, he serves as a basketball coach. The term of being coachable and being teachable is so crucial, because it allows the current leadership to evaluate and go, all right, well, Owen wants to learn. Owen wants extra responsibility. Well, I'm going to give him that responsibility. And, I've been telling a lot of people, like, my time is almost up, and I've been in this position for a long time. I've learned a lot. I've done a lot, and I want to pass on my knowledge. So just seeing people, step outside their comfort zone is definitely something that's really important. And, being willing and being, okay with failing.
Yeah.
I think that's crucial, and that's something that I wasn't okay with in my first term. And I was often very down on myself for that. But that's something I look at in terms of development is there's going to be ups and downs. I view it as a roller coaster in a sense. Is you're going to have really high ups and then you're going to have really low downs. But it's what you do with those downs is what stands out. Like, if you go down and you just stay there, maybe leadership isn't necessarily for you, but, being willing to bounce right back up and ask more questions and, try and crack at it again. Like, it's a movie reference, but The Dark Knight Rises, I don't know if any of you have seen it, but Batman was in the cave and he tried to jump up and he fell. And he fell back down and he got really injured. And he had to sit back down there and train again, and it took him a bit. And then he eventually did it again, and he, prevailed. So that's something that I really look at is, are people going to be willing to prevail, willing to, take another crack at things? But, Luke, I don't know if you have anything else to say to that.
In essence of time, I'm going to pass it on to your question about Rainey, but I'm excited to talk about that more off the show because that's a really good question.
Yeah, and I'd like to note, I think that's a really good analogy, Andrew. I think the important part about that roller coaster is to ride it to the end. Like, you just got to take all the ups and downs. That's what makes it a good ride. And then, Rainey, here, my question for you is going to be, obviously, you have some experience in PR. You've been doing it for a while, and it's your major, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, one of two, yeah.
Yeah. So how has, like, your college experience and your major specifically driven you as a brother?
How has PR driven me as a brother? I think PR just gives you, studying that just gives you such an awareness of how to externally represent yourself based on all things you've been involved in. And I think if there's one thing that's improved a lot is, my professionalism on the outside and, how I represent myself in public settings, how I represent Kappa Sigma beyond Kappa Sigma, how I represent the Public Relations Student Society of America chapter beyond that chapter, how I represent this radio station beyond the radio station, how I represent the places I've interned for beyond there. I didn't necessarily prioritize those things starting off in my college experience, and that's probably one of my greatest regrets is, people knew I was involved in professional things, but I can't say I was a professional person. But being, having, the PR responsibilities for a social fraternity, it's a intense responsibility that, there's a lot of trust involved in making sure the messages you say are said in the right way and are said in a way that represents your brothers professionally. And I think that's the biggest thing that, PR has brought into my Kappa Sigma experience is, again, like I said, there is a professional aspect to how you have to communicate, but also the way that the chapter is portrayed externally. Not just about, how are we going to make the Instagram post? It's about what do we look like when we're on campus? What are we doing whenever we're at a fundraiser and you have important administrators from the university who are walking past our table, and some of the brothers might not even know that that's happening. So how are we conducting ourselves in those settings? So there's all those things in PR, even if you don't directly talk about that in your PR classes. External representation and representing yourself and others in the right ways is so important, and I think that's the greatest thing that being able to practice PR in a Greek setting has provided me.
Yeah, I mean, that's professionalism is it's an interesting skill because it's not one that you can easily define, but it's one that you know when you see.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have to eventually wrap it up. We're a little bit past our window, so it's been a great end to a great semester here on Greek Speak. So thank you, obviously, to all of our listeners. Andrew Mercier and Luke Hillegass, thank you both for your roles in the productions of each week's episode. I've been very much enjoyed everything we've done this semester, from all the guests we had at the beginning of the year, whether that was talking to Drew Williams about Fun Run, people like Anna Weaver and Matthew Hoover from PSP, Izzy Kemp, Takara from Delta Zeta, and so much more, even brothers from the Pi Lambda Phi chapter here. Like, it's really been a diverse collection of Greeks guests on this show. So I've been really proud of that effort and really thankful to have been a part of it. And thank you, Owen, one last time for being on the show. On behalf of all of us, we thank you all for listening again. It's Luke Rainey, Andrew Mercier, Luke Hillegass, and Owen Henning signing off one final time at 2025. Thank you for listening. And until next year, we'll see all of you later.